I want us to be closer, Lorraine. I feel like we never really connected, Cassidy said, her voice sweet as honey over the phone that rainy October afternoon. Those words should have warmed my heart. Instead, they sent a chill down my spine that I chose to ignore, a mistake that would cost me more than just a family heirloom. Let me tell you what led to this moment. My name is Lorraine Mitchell. I'm 63 years old, and until recently, I lived alone in a white 2-story house in Asheville, North Carolina, the kind with wooden porch steps that creaked whenever it rained. And it rained a lot that fall. The sound had become my companion since Kenneth passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. It took him so quickly I barely had time to say goodbye. Our son Trevor married Cassidy 2 years after the funeral. She was a nurse with an ever-present smile that never quite reached her eyes. I wanted to believe it was genuine. Maybe that's why I ignored the warning signs for so long. I remember standing in my kitchen that Tuesday morning, rain tapping against the window like impatient fingers, when the phone rang. I was stirring my tea, watching the leaves swirl in golden circles. Kenneth always said you could read fortunes in tea leaves. I wondered what mine would have told me that day. "Hello?" I answered, balancing the phone between my ear and shoulder. "Lorraine, it's Cassidy." Her voice had that practiced cheerfulness that nurses perfect after years of delivering both good and bad news with the same tone. "Oh, hello, dear. Is everything all right with Trevor?" My son worked too much at his accounting firm, 60-hour weeks that left dark circles under his eyes. "Trevor's fine. I'm actually calling about us." A pause. "I've been thinking we should spend more time together, just us. I feel like I never really got to know you, with everything that happened with Kenneth and then the wedding." My spoon stopped mid-stir. In the 2 years since she'd married my son, Cassidy had never once suggested we spend time together. Our interactions were limited to holiday dinners and occasional Sunday brunches, always with Trevor present. "That would be nice," I said, though something in my chest tightened. Was it suspicion? Or just the loneliness making me wary of connection? "Great. I could come by tomorrow afternoon around 3. Her enthusiasm seemed excessive, like someone trying too hard to sell something. "Tomorrow works fine." I hung up and looked around my empty kitchen. The house that once buzzed with family now echoed with silence. Perhaps I was being unfair. Perhaps Cassidy genuinely wanted to bridge the gap between us. The next day, she arrived precisely at 3, wearing a cream-colored sweater and carrying a small box of pastries from the French bakery downtown. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, making her look younger than her 34 years. "These are your favorites, right? Trevor mentioned you love their almond. Croissants." She handed me the box with a smile. I didn't have the heart to tell her I preferred the chocolate ones. Kenneth was the almond lover. It seemed such a small thing to correct. We sat on the porch despite the chill in the air. The wooden boards creaked beneath our chairs as we sipped tea from my mother's china cups. Cassidy talked about her work at the hospital, about Trevor's latest promotion, about the house they were thinking of buying in the spring. "He works so hard," she said, stirring her tea. "Sometimes I hardly see him." "Kenneth was the same way when Trevor was young," I offered. "Always at the office, building his practice." "What was he like?" she asked suddenly. "Kenneth, I mean. Trevor doesn't talk about him much." My throat tightened. "He was steady. The kind of man who fixed things before you knew they were broken. He loved classical music, but couldn't carry a tune to save his life." The memory made me smile despite the ache. "He collected old maps, said they showed not just where people went, but what they valued." Cassidy nodded, her eyes never leaving my face. "You must miss him terribly. Every day." My voice barely carried over the sound of the rain. She reached across the small table between us and took my hand. Her fingers were cool and smooth against my weathered ones. I never really knew my mother. She died when I was 8. Cancer, like Kenneth. I hadn't known this. Trevor had mentioned her parents were divorced, but nothing about her mother's death. "I'm so sorry," I said, and meant it. "That's why this means so much to me, having you in my life." She squeezed my hand. "You're the mother I never had." Something in her tone made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It felt rehearsed, like a line from a movie, but I pushed the feeling away. Loneliness does that to you, makes you accept crumbs of affection because a whole loaf seems too much to hope for. That first visit turned into a weekly ritual. Every Wednesday at 3, Cassidy would arrive with pastries or flowers. We'd sit on the porch when weather permitted, or in the living room when it didn't. She'd tell me about her week, ask about mine, and gradually, the questions became more personal. Did I have friends I saw regularly? Not many, since Kenneth died. Was I dating anyone? The question made me laugh out loud. Did I ever think about selling the house? Never seriously. What did I plan to do with Kenneth's things? I hadn't decided. Looking back, I should have seen the pattern, the way she was mapping my life, my connections, my vulnerabilities, but at the time, it felt like interest, like care. On her 5th visit, as November turned the trees bare and the air sharp, Cassidy asked about Kenneth's jewelry. Trevor mentioned his father had some nice pieces, she said casually, warming her hands around her teacup. He said there was a watch collection? Yes, Kenneth loved his watches. I gave most of them to Trevor after the funeral. I sipped my tea, remembering how Kenneth would wind each watch every Sunday evening, a ritual that marked the beginning of a new week. What about your jewelry? Do you have special pieces from your marriage? The question seemed innocent enough. Many women are interested in family heirlooms, the stories behind them. I do. Would you like to see them? Her eyes lit up. I'd love to. It helps me understand what a real marriage looks like. A real marriage. The phrase struck me as odd. Wasn't hers real? I led her upstairs to the bedroom I once shared with Kenneth. The room was largely unchanged since his death. His reading glasses still on the nightstand, his slippers still under the bed. I couldn't bear to move them. From the closet, I retrieved a mahogany box with brass hinges that Kenneth had given me on our 20th anniversary. Inside, nestled on dark blue velvet, lay the physical markers of our life together. My original wedding band before arthritis forced me to stop wearing it, pearl earrings from our 25th anniversary, a cameo brooch that had belonged to my grandmother, and the engagement ring Kenneth had given me in 1982. White gold with a blue sapphire, small but perfect, like a piece of sky captured in metal. Cassidy's breath caught when I opened the box. "These are beautiful," she whispered, her fingers hovering over the contents. "Each one has a story," I said, touching the pearl earrings. "Kenneth gave me these when Trevor was born, said I deserved something beautiful after bringing something beautiful into the world." She picked up the engagement ring, holding it to the light. The sapphire caught the afternoon sun, sending blue reflections dancing across her face. "This is exquisite," she said, "so delicate." Kenneth saved for a year to buy it. He was still in law school, working nights at a restaurant. I smiled at the memory. He proposed at the restaurant after his shift, still wearing his apron, smelling like fried onions. Cassidy turned the ring in her fingers, examining it from every angle. "They don't make them like this anymore. Everything now is so flashy. This has character." She held it a moment longer before carefully placing it back in the box, but something in the way her eyes lingered made my stomach twist. I closed the lid perhaps a bit too quickly. "Thank you for showing me," she said as we headed back downstairs. "It means a lot that you'd share something so personal." That night, after she left, I found myself opening the jewelry box again, making sure everything was in its place. It was. Of course it was. What was I thinking? 2 more Wednesday visits passed without incident. Cassidy brought photos of her and Trevor's recent weekend trip to the mountains. She asked about Thanksgiving plans, about family recipes she might try. Normal things a daughter-in-law might ask. Then came the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Cassidy called that morning to cancel our tea. She and Trevor were driving to his cousin's place in Virginia a day early to beat the traffic. I told her I understood, though a small part of me had been looking forward to our chat. The house felt especially empty during holidays. That evening, as I was changing into my nightgown, I opened the jewelry box to look at Kenneth's watch, a ritual of my own on nights when I missed him most. I liked to hold it to my ear, listening to the steady tick that reminded me of his heartbeat. As I moved aside the velvet cloth covering the watches, my hand froze. Something was wrong. The arrangement was different. I always kept Kenneth's favorite watch, a vintage Omega with a brown leather strap, on the left side. It was now on the right. Heart racing, I lifted the tray that separated the watches from my jewelry. The pearl earrings gleamed in the lamplight. The cameo brooch sat in its usual corner. The wedding band. The engagement ring was gone. My fingers scrambled through the box, lifting pieces, checking underneath, searching for the small circle of white gold and blue stone. Nothing. It wasn't there. I emptied the entire box onto the bed, counted each piece, checked the floor, the nightstand under the bed. Nothing. I sat heavily on the edge of the mattress, my hands shaking. The ring couldn't just disappear. I hadn't worn it in years, not since Kenneth died. I never took it out of the house, never showed it to anyone except Cassidy. No, that couldn't be right. She was family, Trevor's wife. She wouldn't steal from me. There had to be another explanation. Maybe I had moved it without remembering. Maybe it had fallen somewhere when I last opened the box. I spent the next 2 hours searching every inch of the bedroom, then the bathroom, then the hallway, in case I had somehow dropped it while walking. By midnight, my knees ached from crawling on the floor, my eyes burned from peering into dark corners, and the truth I didn't want to face became unavoidable. The ring was gone, and I knew who had taken it. I didn't sleep that night. My mind raced with questions, doubts, and a growing sense of betrayal that made my chest tight. By morning, I had convinced myself to call Trevor. Surely he would believe me. Surely he would make this right. I waited until 9, knowing they'd be on the road to Virginia. Trevor answered on the 4th ring, road noise in the background. "Mom, everything okay?" He sounded distracted. "Trevor, I need to talk to you about something important." My voice was steadier than I felt. "Is Cassidy with you?" "She's driving. What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "My engagement ring is missing, the sapphire one from your father." Silence on the line, just the hum of tires on asphalt. "Are you sure?" he finally asked. "When did you last see it?" 2 weeks ago, when Cassidy was here for tea. I showed her my jewelry box." Another long pause. "Mom, what are you saying?" "I'm saying the ring is gone. And the only person who's been in my bedroom besides me is Cassidy." "Mom." His voice dropped, taking on that patient tone people use with children or the elderly. "Are you suggesting Cassidy stole your ring?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you it's missing, and she's the only one who saw it recently." "That's a serious accusation." His voice had an edge now. "Cassidy wouldn't do something like that." "Trevor, I know what I know. The ring is gone. Maybe you misplaced it, or maybe it fell somewhere when you were showing it to her. I've looked everywhere. It's not in the house." He sighed, a sound that conveyed more than words could. "Look, we'll be back on Sunday. I'll talk to Cassidy, okay? But Mom, you need to be careful about accusing people of theft, especially family." The way he said family, as if Cassidy was more family to him than I was, cut deeper than I expected. "Just talk to her," I said, my voice small now. "Please." "I will. Try not to worry about it. It'll turn up." But it wouldn't turn up. I knew that as surely as I knew my own name. 3 days passed. Thanksgiving came and went. I declined an invitation from my neighbor to join her family dinner, claiming a headache. The truth was, I couldn't bear to sit at someone else's table, making small talk while this betrayal festered inside me. Sunday evening, my phone rang. "Trevor, Mom, I talked to Cassidy about the ring." "And?" My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. "She says she never touched it. She remembers you showing it to her, but she put it back in the box." "Trevor, that's not—" "Mom, listen." His voice was firm now. "Cassidy wouldn't lie about this. She has her own jewelry. She doesn't need to take yours." "This isn't about need. That ring was special. It was from your father." "I know, and I'm sorry it's missing, but you've been forgetful lately." The accusation hung in the air between us. Forgetful. Like I was some doddering old woman who couldn't keep track of her possessions. "I am not forgetful, Trevor. I know what happened. Mom, after Dad died, you put his glasses in the freezer. You forgot Aunt Helen's birthday for the first time in 30 years. It happens, especially after trauma." I had no response to that. It was true I'd been distracted after Kenneth died. Grief does that. But this was different. "We'll look for it when we visit at Christmas," he said, his tone softening. "Maybe with fresh eyes, we'll find it." After we hung up, I sat in Kenneth's old armchair, staring at the wall. My own son didn't believe me, thought I was confused, imagining things, and maybe that hurt worse than the missing ring. Cassidy called the next day, her voice dripping with concern. "Lorraine, Trevor told me about the ring. I'm so sorry it's missing." "Are you?" The words came out sharper than I intended. A pause. "Of course I am. I know how much it meant to you." "It still means a lot to me." Present tense. "We'll find." I promise. Maybe it slipped between the floorboards or something. Maybe. I couldn't bring myself to continue the charade. "Are we still on for tea this Wednesday?" she asked, her tone deliberately light. "I don't think so. I'm not feeling well." "Oh no, what's wrong?" "Everything. Trust, family, truth, all broken." "Just a cold," I lied. "I'll call you when I'm better." I didn't answer her calls the following Wednesday, or the Wednesday after that. She left voicemails, each one more concerned than the last. "Lorraine, I'm worried about you. Please call me back. I just want to know you're okay. Trevor and I are thinking of coming over this weekend if we don't hear from you." I finally texted back. "I'm fine. Just need some time alone." The truth was, I couldn't bear to see her, to sit across from her, drinking tea from my mother's china, knowing she had violated my trust in the most personal way. It wasn't just the monetary value of the ring, though that was substantial. It was what it represented. Kenneth's love. Our beginning. The promise we made and kept for 40 years. December arrived with a cold snap that froze the rain into delicate patterns on my windows. I found myself sleeping in Kenneth's pajamas, surrounding myself with his things as if they could protect me from this new pain. One afternoon, as I was bringing in the mail, I noticed a car parked across the street, a dark blue sedan I didn't recognize. As I sorted through bills and Christmas cards at the kitchen table, I glanced out the window again. The car was still there, but now I could see someone sitting inside, watching my house. A chill that had nothing to do with the weather ran through me. Was I being paranoid now? Seeing threats where there were none? The phone rang, startling me so badly I knocked over my water glass. "Hello?" My voice sounded strange even to my own ears. "Mom, it's Trevor." "Is everything okay?" I asked, still watching the car through the window. "That's what I was going to ask you. Cassidy says you haven't been answering her calls." I told her I needed some time. "Because of the ring? Mom, you can't punish her for something she didn't do." The unfairness of his assumption made my eyes sting. "I'm not punishing anyone. I just needed space." "Well, I'm calling because we need to discuss Christmas plans. Cassidy's family invited us to spend it with them in Charleston." "Oh." The single syllable contained all my disappointment. Christmas had always been at my house, even after Kenneth died. "I see. You could come with us," he offered, though his tone suggested he knew I wouldn't accept. "No, thank you. I'll be fine here." "Are you sure? I don't like the thought of you alone on Christmas." "I've been alone for 3 years, Trevor. One more day won't break me." After we hung up, I returned to the window. The blue car was gone. Maybe it had never been there at all. The days before Christmas passed in a blur of solitary activity. I baked cookies I wouldn't eat, wrapped presents for Trevor and Cassidy that I knew would sit unopened until they visited, hung the ornaments Kenneth and I had collected over 4 decades on a tree too large for one person. On Christmas Eve, as snow began to fall outside my window, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. For a moment, I considered not answering. But something, curiosity or perhaps holiday spirit, made me go to the door. A young woman stood on my porch, bundled in a red coat, snow collecting on her dark hair. She looked vaguely familiar, though I couldn't place her. "Mrs. Mitchell?" she asked, her breath visible in the cold air. "Yes?" "I'm Nicole, Cassidy's sister." She glanced nervously over her shoulder at the empty street. "Can I come in? It's important." I hesitated. I hadn't known Cassidy had a sister. Trevor had never mentioned her, but the urgency in her eyes made me step aside. "Thank you," she said, quickly entering. She removed her coat, revealing a slender frame in a simple green sweater and jeans. Up close, I could see the resemblance to Cassidy, the same heart-shaped face and full lips, though Nicole's features were softer, less defined. "Would you like some tea?" I offered, falling back on the politeness that had been drilled into me since childhood. "No, thank you." She perched on the edge of my sofa, her posture tense. "I can't stay long. Cassidy thinks I'm shopping for last-minute gifts." "You're spending Christmas with her and Trevor?" She nodded. "In Charleston, with my dad and stepmom." "I see." I sat in the armchair across from her, waiting. Nicole took a deep breath. "Mrs. Mitchell, I know about the ring." My heart skipped a beat. "What about it?" "Cassidy took it. She showed it to me last month, said you gave it to her, but I knew that wasn't true." Her words tumbled out now, like she'd been holding them back too long. "She's always done this, taken things, lied about it, even when we were kids." The confirmation of what I already knew should have been satisfying. Instead, it just made me sad. "Did she tell you why?" I asked. Nicole looked down at her hands. "She and Trevor are having money problems. Credit card debt, mostly. She said the ring could solve everything." "She's planning to sell it?" The thought made my stomach turn. "I think so. She's been researching jewelers in Charleston." Nicole finally met my eyes. "Mrs. Mitchell, you should know. Our mom didn't die of cancer." This unexpected turn made me sit up straighter. "What?" "She left. When I was 6, Cassidy was 11. She couldn't take it anymore. The lying, the stealing. Dad covered it up, told everyone she died because it was less shameful than the truth. That she abandoned her children?" I couldn't keep the shock from my voice. Nicole shook her head. "That her daughter was someone she couldn't trust, someone who took whatever she wanted and never felt bad about it." She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. "Mom tried for years. Therapy, consequences, love. Nothing worked. Cassidy just got better at hiding it." I sat back, trying to process this new information. It explained so much. Cassidy's practiced charm, her strategic questions, the way she'd inserted herself into my life right when I was most vulnerable. "Why are you telling me this?" I finally asked. "Because it's not right." Nicole's voice strengthened. "Trevor deserves to know who he married, and you deserve to get your ring back." "Have you told Trevor any of this?" She shook her head. "Cassidy has him completely convinced that you're confused, that grief is making you forgetful." The betrayal stung anew. My own son manipulated against me. "What do you suggest I do?" I asked, suddenly feeling every one of my 63 years. "I don't know exactly, but I had to tell someone the truth." Nicole stood, reaching for her coat. "I should go before she gets suspicious." At the door, she paused. "Mrs. Mitchell? I'm sorry about all of it." After she left, I sat in the growing darkness, the Christmas tree lights casting colored shadows across the room. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering everything in a blanket of white that would look pure and untouched until morning. I needed help. Someone who would believe me without question. Someone who knew how to handle situations like this. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in months. "Harold, it's Lorraine. I need your help." Harold was Kenneth's older brother, a retired private investigator who'd seen enough of human nature to be surprised by very little. He'd never particularly warmed to Cassidy, saying once that she had the eyes of someone who keeps secrets. I dismissed it as his professional paranoia. Now I wished I'd listened. He arrived the day after Christmas, driving up from Florida where he'd retired 5 years earlier. His hair was whiter than I remembered, his face more lined, but his eyes were still sharp as they took in my appearance. "You've lost weight," he said by way of greeting, giving me a brief hug before setting his suitcase inside the door. "Not intentionally," I admitted, leading him to the kitchen where I had coffee waiting. We sat at the table, the same one where Kenneth and Harold had played countless games of chess over the years. I told him everything. The weekly visits, the jewelry box, the missing ring. Trevor's disbelief, and finally Nicole's revelation. Harold listened without interruption, his weathered hands wrapped around his coffee mug. When I finished, he nodded once, as if confirming something to himself. "You believe me, then?" I asked, hating the uncertainty in my voice. "Of course I believe you, Lorraine. You're the most clear-headed person I know." He set down his mug. "Kenneth would be furious if he knew someone was gaslighting you like this." The word hit me like a physical blow. Gaslighting. Yes, that's exactly what was happening. Making me doubt my own mind, my own memory. "What should I do?" I asked. "I can't prove she took it." "Not yet," Harold agreed. "But people like Cassidy get careless when they think they've won. They get confident, make mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" "They can't help themselves. If she stole once, she'll steal again, or she'll try to cash in on what she already took." He leaned forward. "Let me do some digging. See what I can find out about their finances, her movements." "Is that legal?" I asked, though I found I didn't much care about the answer. Harold's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Let's just say I still have friends in the business who owe me favors." He stayed for a week, using my guest room as a makeshift office. During the day, he'd disappear for hours at a time, returning with coffee and sometimes photographs. In the evenings, we'd sit in the living room, the TV on for background noise, while he made calls or typed on his laptop. I didn't ask too many questions. Part of me didn't want to know the details of what he was doing. Another part was simply grateful that someone was fighting for me. On New Year's Eve, as I was preparing a simple dinner for us, Harold came into the kitchen with a folder. "I've got something," he said, his expression grim but satisfied. He laid out several photographs on the kitchen table. They showed Cassidy entering and exiting a building in a town about 40 miles away. "What am I looking at?" I asked, squinting at the images. "That's Riverside Jewelry and Loan, a high-end pawn shop that specializes in estate pieces." Harold pointed to the date stamp on one photo. "This was taken 3 days ago." "She went to a pawn shop?" My heart raced. Did she sell my ring?" "No." Harold flipped to another photo, this one showing Cassidy talking to a man behind a counter. "She was getting it appraised, finding out what it's worth before she sells it." Relief flooded through me. "So she still has it?" "Most likely. And there's more." He pulled out a printed bank statement. "Your daughter-in-law has a separate account, one Trevor doesn't know about." I scanned the statement, noting regular deposits and withdrawals. "What does this mean?" "It means she's been planning something, putting away money. There are also charges here for a storage unit in her name only." Harold's expression was somber. "Lorraine, I think she's preparing to leave Trevor." The thought hit me like ice water. Leave him? But they've only been married 2 years. Some people view marriage as a stepping stone, not a destination. Harold gathered the papers back into the folder. "The question is, what do we do with this information?" I stared out the window, watching the last light of the year fade from the sky. "We need to tell Trevor, show him the evidence. He might not believe it, even with proof. She's had 2 years to work on him, convince him she's the victim here." "Then what do you suggest?" Harold considered for a moment. "We need to catch her in the act. Something he can't deny. Something she can't talk her way out of." We spent the next hour formulating a plan. It wasn't elaborate or particularly clever, just a simple trap based on Cassidy's own predictable behavior. The next day, Harold returned to Florida, leaving me with the folder of evidence and instructions on what to do next. The house felt emptier without him, but I also felt stronger. Less like a victim, more like someone taking back control. Trevor and Cassidy returned from Charleston on January 2nd. Trevor called that evening, his voice cautious. "Mom, how was your Christmas?" "Quiet," I said truthfully. "How was Charleston?" "Good. Cassidy's family was very welcoming." He paused. "Listen, Mom, we need to talk about what happened. With the ring." "Yes, we do." I kept my voice neutral. "Why don't you both come for dinner this weekend? Saturday?" His surprise was audible. "You want Cassidy to come?" "Of course, she's your wife." The words tasted bitter, but I forced them out. "I think we all need to clear the air." "Okay, that would be good. What time?" 6 o'clock. And Trevor, I'm making your favorite pot roast. After hanging up, I sat at my desk and wrote out exactly what I would say on Saturday. Not accusations or emotional appeals, but simple facts. The truth, presented calmly and clearly. Then I made a call to Nicole. Saturday arrived cold and clear, the kind of winter day that looks warmer than it feels. I spent the morning cleaning, though the house was already spotless, a nervous habit from my mother I'd never quite shaken. In the afternoon, I prepared the pot roast, filling the house with the comforting smell of slow-cooked beef and vegetables. At 5:30, I changed into a simple blue dress that Kenneth had always liked, applied a touch of lipstick, and went downstairs to wait. The folder Harold had given me sat on the coffee table, partially hidden under a magazine. The doorbell rang at 5 minutes to 6. I took a deep breath, smoothed my dress, and went to answer it. Trevor stood on the porch, alone. "Where's Cassidy?" I asked, looking past him to the empty driveway. "She's not feeling well." He stepped inside, giving me a quick hug that felt more obligatory than affectionate. "She sends her apologies." Of course she does, I thought. She knew this was a confrontation and chose to avoid it. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, leading him to the living room. "Is it serious?" "Just a migraine. She gets them sometimes." Trevor sat on the sofa, his posture stiff. "Mom, before we eat, I want to clear something up. About the ring." Here it comes, I thought. The prepared speech about how I was confused, how I needed to accept that I'd lost it. "Trevor, Please, let me finish." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I know you think Cassidy took it, and I know I dismissed your concerns too quickly. That wasn't fair to you." This wasn't what I expected. I sat down slowly in the armchair opposite him. "The thing is, Mom, you've been through a lot. Losing Dad, living alone. It changes a person. And sometimes our minds play tricks on us when we're grieving." "My mind isn't playing tricks on me, Trevor." I kept my voice steady. "The ring is gone. And Cassidy is the only person who saw it before it disappeared." He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so like his father it made my heart ache. "I asked her directly, Mom. She swore she never touched it. And you believe her over me." It wasn't a question. "I believe that you believe it's missing. But isn't it possible you moved it? Or maybe it fell somewhere when you were showing it to her?" I reached for the folder on the coffee table, sliding it out from under the magazine. "Trevor, there's something you need to see." Before I could open it, the doorbell rang again. Trevor looked confused. "Are you expecting someone else?" "Yes." I stood, placing the folder back on the table. "Excuse me a moment." I opened the door to find Nicole standing on the porch, her face pale with anxiety. Behind her was a young man I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm sorry we're late," she said, her voice higher than usual. "This is my boyfriend, Jake. Is it okay if he joins us?" Of course. I stepped aside to let them in, noting the confusion on Trevor's face as he saw who had arrived. "Nicole?" He stood, looking between her and me. "What are you doing here?" "I invited her," I said simply. "And Jake, it's nice to meet you." Jake, a tall young man with kind eyes and nervous energy, shook my hand. "Thank you for having us, Mrs. Mitchell." Trevor's confusion was turning to suspicion. "Mom, what's going on? Why is Cassidy's sister here?" Nicole stepped forward, her hands twisted together. "Trevor, I need to tell you something about Cassidy." His face hardened. "If this is about the ring, it's about more than that," she interrupted. "It's about who she really is." For the next 20 minutes, as the pot roast cooled in the kitchen, Nicole told Trevor everything. About Cassidy's history of taking things that didn't belong to her, about their mother leaving, not dying, about the lies Cassidy had told him about her past, her family, her intentions. Trevor listened in stunned silence, his face cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally a dawning horror. "Why should I believe you?" he finally asked, his voice hoarse. "You're her sister. Why would you say these things about her?" "Because they're true," Nicole said simply. "And because what she's doing to you and Mrs. Mitchell isn't right." "She showed me the ring, Trevor," Jake added quietly. at their dad's house over Christmas. Said it was a gift from your mom, but Nicole knew that couldn't be true. Trevor turned to me, his eyes searching my face. Mom? I opened the folder Harold had given me, laying out the photographs of Cassidy at the pawn shop, the bank statements showing her secret account, the receipt for the storage unit. She's planning to leave you, I said gently. She's been preparing for months. Trevor stared at the evidence, his hands shaking slightly as he picked up one of the photos. How did you get these? Your Uncle Harold helped me. He's still got connections from his PI days. Jesus. Trevor sat back, running both hands through his hair now. I can't believe this. I know it's hard to hear, I said, moving to sit beside him on the sofa. I didn't want to believe it either. But why? He looked at me, confusion and pain etched on his face. Why would she do this? Some people are just wired differently, Nicole said softly. They take what they want and don't think about who they hurt. Trevor stood abruptly, pacing the room. I need to talk to her. Confront her with this. That might not be the best approach, I cautioned. She'll deny everything. Make you doubt what you've seen. Then what do you suggest? There was an edge to his voice now. Anger, but not directed at me. I glanced at Nicole, who nodded slightly. We have a plan. The plan was simple. Trevor would tell Cassidy that Nicole had called him, upset about something Cassidy had done. He wouldn't specify what, just that Nicole was threatening to tell everyone the truth. He'd suggest they invite Nicole and Jake over for dinner the following evening to clear the air. She'll be defensive, Nicole warned, but she won't be able to resist the opportunity to control the narrative. Trevor nodded, his jaw set in a way that reminded me so much of Kenneth when he was preparing for a difficult court case. And then what? Then I'll confront her about the ring, Nicole said. I'll say I told Jake about it and he thinks we should go to the police. She'll panic, I added. People like Cassidy can't handle being cornered. They lash out, say things they shouldn't. Trevor looked at the three of us, his expression a mixture of determination and despair. And I'm supposed to just sit there and watch my marriage implode? Your marriage was built on lies, Trevor, Nicole said gently. You deserve better than that. He closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded. Okay, let's do it. The next evening, I sat by the phone, waiting. Trevor had promised to call as soon as it was over. I'd wanted to be there, but we all agreed my presence would immediately put Cassidy on guard. The house felt too quiet, too empty. I found myself talking to Kenneth as I paced the living room. You should see your son, Kenneth. So strong, even when his heart is breaking. You'd be proud of him. At 9:30, the phone rang. I answered on the first ring. Trevor? Mom. His voice sounded hollow, drained. It's over. What happened? Exactly what you said would happen. She denied everything at first. Then Nicole showed the pictures of her at the pawn shop. She lost it, started screaming. That we were all against her, that she deserved nice things after everything she'd been through. Did she admit to taking the ring? Yes. He exhaled shakily. She said she was going to give it back eventually, that she just wanted to know what it was worth. But then she said I was weak like my father, that she only stayed with me because I was easy to manage. The cruelty of it made my breath catch. Oh, Trevor. She's gone now, packed a bag and left. Said she'd send for her things. Where are you now? At home. Nicole and Jake are still here. Do you want me to come over? A pause. No, not tonight. I need some time to process all this. But Mom? Yes? I'm sorry. I didn't believe you. I should have trusted you. Tears pricked at my eyes. It's okay, sweetheart. She fooled a lot of people. Not you, he said, a hint of pride in his voice. She never fooled you. After we hung up, I sat in Kenneth's chair, feeling a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. No one wins in a situation like this. Even when the truth comes out, there's still the wreckage to deal with. 2 days later, Trevor showed up at my door, looking tired but resolute. In his hand was a small velvet pouch. She left this on the kitchen table before she went to her dad's. He handed it to me. I think it belongs to you. I opened the pouch and tipped my engagement ring into my palm. The blue sapphire caught the light, but I noticed immediately that the band was scratched, the setting slightly bent, as if it had been handled roughly. "Thank you," I said, closing my fingers around it. "I'm sorry it came to this." Trevor shrugged, a gesture that tried for nonchalance but couldn't quite hide his pain. Harold was right. She had a storage unit full of stuff. Things she'd taken from me, from friends. She was planning to leave next month, had a ticket to California and everything. "What will you do now?" I asked, leading him to the kitchen where I put on the kettle for tea, a habit that now reminded me of those afternoons with Cassidy, though I tried not to let it taint the comfort of the ritual. "Start over, I guess." He sat heavily at the table. "File for divorce. Try to untangle our finances. It's a mess, Mom. She maxed out credit cards I didn't even know we had. You'll get through it," I said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "One day at a time." He covered my hand with his own. "Would it be okay if I stayed here for a while? Just until I figure things out?" "Of course. This is your home, too." Spring came slowly that year, the cold lingering well into March. Trevor stayed in his old bedroom for 2 months, gradually sorting through the wreckage of his marriage. Cassidy never contacted him directly again, communicating only through her lawyer. The divorce was finalized by summer. Nicole became a regular visitor, often bringing Jake along. She seemed to blossom once free from her sister's shadow, returning to college to finish the Kiaki degree she'd abandoned years earlier. She and Trevor developed a friendship independent of Cassidy, bonded by their shared experience of betrayal. As for me, I kept the ring. Not to wear, the scratches and bent setting would have made that difficult anyway, but as a reminder. Not of Kenneth, as it once had been, but of how easily trust can be manipulated, and how important it is to stand firm in your own truth, even when others doubt you. One Sunday in April, as Trevor and I sat on the porch drinking coffee, watching the first green shoots push through the garden soil, he asked me a question I hadn't expected. "How did you know, Mom? About Cassidy? Right from the beginning, you had reservations." I considered my answer carefully. It wasn't any one thing. It was the way her smile never reached her eyes, the way her questions always seemed to have a purpose beyond simple conversation, the way she'd touch my hand and say exactly what she thought I wanted to hear. But lots of people are like that, especially when they're trying to impress their in-laws. True. I sipped my coffee, watching a cardinal land on the bird feeder Kenneth had built years ago. I think what really tipped me off was how perfect she seemed. No rough edges, no mistakes. Real people have flaws they can't hide. Cassidy had flaws she wouldn't admit. Trevor nodded slowly. I was so blind. "You were in love. That's a different kind of seeing." "Dad would have seen through her," he said, a note of regret in his voice. "Maybe. Maybe not. Your father believed the best in people until they gave him reason not to. Just like you." He smiled, a small but genuine expression that reminded me he was healing. "I'm glad you're not like that. Too trusting." "Oh, I trusted her at first. I wanted to believe she genuinely wanted to know me. That's the thing about people like Cassidy. They target your deepest wants. For me, it was connection. For you, it was a partner who seemed to understand you completely. How do you avoid it? Getting fooled again?" I looked at the cardinal, now joined by its mate, both of them bright against the pale spring sky. You don't close yourself off. That's letting them win. You just learn to listen to that quiet voice inside that says, something isn't right here, the one I ignored for too long. Trevor moved back to his own place in May, an apartment closer to downtown. He started therapy, joined a hiking group, slowly rebuilt his life. I kept the house, though I finally packed away some of Kenneth's things, not to erase him, but to make room for this new chapter. Harold visits more often now. He says Florida is too hot in the summer, but I think he just likes having family around. He and Trevor go fishing sometimes, something Kenneth never had the patience for. Last week, Trevor brought a woman to Sunday dinner. Elaine, a librarian he met at a community garden event. She's quiet but not shy, with laugh lines around her eyes and opinions she doesn't hide. When she disagreed with Trevor about a book they'd both read, I felt something in me relax. This was real. This was honest. After they left, I took out the jewelry box, opening it to look at my engagement ring, still nestled in its velvet pouch. The scratches catch the light differently now, telling a new story alongside the old one. A story about truth and trust, about standing firm when others try to make you doubt yourself. Some might say Cassidy took something from me. Peace of mind, trust in others, the perfect memory of a treasured possession. But looking back, I think she gave me something too. A reminder of my own strength, a chance to rebuild my relationship with my son on more honest ground, a sharper eye for truth in a world full of convenient lies. The ring sits in my palm, smaller than I remember, but no less significant. I close my fingers around it, feeling its weight, its history, its lessons. Some wounds heal completely, leaving no trace. Others leave scars that change us, remind us, strengthen us. I'm learning to appreciate the difference, and if you've ever had someone try to make you doubt what you know to be true, remember this: your certainty is not confusion. Your memory is not failing. Your truth matters even when, especially when, others try to convince you otherwise. Because the truth always rises, even when it takes time, even when it hurts, and when it does, you can finally breathe again.